All right, Tobias, here we go, man. In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente. I'm joined this week by Nabias Wilborn. What's going on, Nabias?
Man, another day in the jungle, man. Just out here trying to make it, brother.
All right, brother. Well, we're going to let everybody know that you can find Know the Score on CSPN.us. You can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher Radio. So we're going to get right into it as we have the baseball playoffs currently in full swing. They got started earlier this week on Tuesday and Wednesday nights with the AL and NL wildcard games. The Yankees used 3 home runs to defeat the Twins, 8-4. Twins got out to a hot start, hit a leadoff home run and then a 2-run homer in the first inning to get a 3-0 lead. But the Yankees erased that in the first inning, and then it was on from there. They got a 2-run homer from Judge, another homer from Gardner, and their bullpen held off the Twins late in the game. They won 8-4 to advance to play the Cleveland Indians. Nabias, you get a chance to catch that game on Tuesday.
Yeah, it was actually pretty entertaining, man. I mean, you know how it goes, man. Baseball is one of those weird, quirky things. Like 1 minute, you're riding high. The next minute, you're down. I mean, if you look at just even last night, or
Mm-hmm.
well, I guess this airs on Sunday, so yeah, we're recording on Saturday. So, yeah, if you look at and yeah, the series is now 2-0 with the Yankees Indians, right? So you look at yesterday in that game, I mean, where they're up 8-3. Corey Kluber, who was the star for the Indians, probably if not Cy Young, definitely in the top three of the Cy Young in the American League this year.
Mm-hmm.
After the Indians won a game, that maybe people thought they maybe wouldn't have, and they win the first game, and then they come out second game. Corey Kluber struggles, has a tough night. They're down 8-3. Next thing you know, they tied, and next thing you know, they win it. I mean,
Right.
Tito Francona is a very special manager. I think he's the best manager in baseball right now. Um, I don't see how the Indians don't win. But yeah, the Yankees game, you look at it, the Yankees Twins game. Shout out to the Twins because it's so interesting, right? Like they traded for Bartolo Colon, they traded for Jaime Garcia, ironically from the Braves, which I'm sure I'll talk to some Braves a little bit later. Not so positively, but you look at what happened there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then they traded Garcia back, and they're like, "Yo, we don't think we're going to be any good." So we traded Garcia to the Yankees, and then all of a sudden the Twins still find a way to get into the playoffs. So
Yep.
I think that's good for them after losing 103 games last year. I think that's a young team that has a way to go. I think that they have shown that they compete, and those guys coming into next year will be even better. So
Right.
watch out for the Twins as they continue to evolve and progress in that AL Central. But yeah, the Yankees, man, I mean, they started out good, and then now they're down 2-0 in the series, which all that really means is the Indians held court at home in Cleveland. So, and we'll see what happens in New York.
Right. Over in the National League, we had the Diamondbacks. They outslugged the Colorado Rockies on Wednesday night to win 11-8. The Diamondbacks had an unprecedented 4 triples in this game. They also got an early homer from Goldschmidt to kind of set the tone. The Rockies just could never get even. They would always be 1 run down, 2 runs down. Ornado Story went back to back to pull them within one in the seventh inning. But then again, the triples reared their ugly head, and Diamondbacks got enough breathing room to bring that one home, and so they got the chance to face the Dodgers last night. The Dodgers won 9-5. Justin Turner had 5 RBIs, homer, and Kershaw gave up 4 homers, but he got enough support from his offense. Yasiel Puig had a big triple, RBI triple in the game as well. Um, how do you see this Dodgers Diamondback series going? Do you think that they can stretch it out to 5 games with the Diamondbacks pitching? I mean, they had to go through a lot of pitching when they played Colorado because that game got crazy. Greinke, I think,
Well,
went 3, 4 innings.
but that's the postseason though, man. That's how it goes. All those relievers are gonna get stretched out. So if it's not like a game in June or a game in May where if the starter's struggling, the manager might keep him out there. Like if the manager sees any slight struggle, he's getting that starting pitcher out of there, no matter who it is. But it's Kershaw, whomever. I mean, like I said, I mean, Kluber last night went, 3 2/3. I mean,
Hmm.
you typically want your starter, even in today's watered down era, you still want your starter at least give you six, at least give you, 6 1/3, get into that seventh inning. So it's it'll be interesting to see how that bullpen manages. They did burn a lot of guys, but they've been going all year, and this is just that time of the year. So we'll see what they do. I think the Dodgers are the better team. I think the Dodgers win that series, but it just goes to show you just how tough that NL West was. I mean, you saw three teams make the playoffs, and the Rockies could have won that game against the Diamondbacks, or the Diamondbacks won. So I think the Dodgers are the best team. I think now they're going to really start to get into their bag. I think they'll be good.
All right. Now the two matchups that were already set were the Astros facing off against the Red Sox over in the American League. Jose Altuve got his name in the record books in the first game, 3 home runs. The Astros won 8-2, and then we had a replay as they won 8-2 again on Friday. Just all around effort in this game. The Red Sox pitching is in shambles. They had to burn through two starters in this last game just to finish it. So I don't know what they're going to do coming up for, this seems to be the theme of this, playoffs right now is just people just using up their pitching. So the Red Sox are in big trouble though, because their offense is in shambles.
Yeah, I mean that's look, the Astros are a really good team, man, and they struggled a bit in the second half, and then picking up Verlander was a really big, kick in the ass. I mean, a couple of their star players said it out loud in the media. Hey, man, look, man, we're trying to win a World Series here. Y'all need to get us some help. Like, it's great that y'all, have built us through the farm system and all that stuff, but we need some help. We're trying to win this thing, and they didn't get it at the trade deadline. Some guys were upset, and you can kind of tell they were a little bit down about it. But then a couple weeks later, you get Justin Verlander, and Verlander was still Verlander. So this playoff is going to be really fun. I think when it's all said and done, when the dust settles, I think we'll see Astros versus Indians in the ALCS, and that will be really fun ALCS.
Right, right. Over in the National League, the Cubs went into Washington and shut out the Nationals last night, 3-0. Kyle Hendricks with another awesome performance, kind of the theme of his second half. He's been probably their best pitcher in the second half. And the Nationals wasted 5 innings of no-hit ball from Strasburg last night, could not find any offense. And the way the Cubs have their pitching set up, the Nationals are in trouble because they're going against Quintana today, and that's at Nationals Park. And then they get Lester and Arrieta back to back in Chicago. So if the Nationals don't find a way to get the win today, this could be a sweep.
Well, you never know, man. And I try not to say that in a pejorative way, but it's tough, man. I mean, excuse me, it's tough because I mean, this is that time of the year, and this is what the Cubs are. I still think the Nationals are the better team. I really do. So, the Nationals go with Scherzer today, right? So, I mean, you got to assume that he's going to be what he's been all year and really for his career. So,
Hmm.
hey, they got to get some runs. That's just it. I mean, we could get into launch angles and all this analytic stuff, but bottom line, they got to get some runs. I
Right.
mean, and nothing else, man. I generally don't have too many rooting interests, but I would love to see Dusty get a World Series, man. And but hey, look, one thing about the playoffs, and I mentioned Tito earlier. You know, Terry Francona, he said, "Hey, look, man, you got to deal with some losses in the playoffs. Nobody's going to go through and sleep all these games. So,
Hmm.
you know, the Nationals they lost, and they lost at home. So let's see how they come back. Let's see how Scherzer handles it. I mean, I think you're in a pretty good boat when you can go to him next.
Right.
So I think the Nationals get this game. Of course, like I said, by the time this airs, we will already know what happened. But I like the Nationals, man. I still think they have a chance. I still see them going to the World Series. So they better get it together, man. Because I kind of already said that. So I need to get it right.
The only thing that I really don't I've had a concern with the Nationals all year is they've had such a big lead all season. They've been coasting for so long. I don't know if they're going to be able to just flip that switch to this competitive, you know, atmosphere that they're going to be in, where the Cubs have kind of had to fight back the second half of the season and hold off the Brewers. So they kind of been in, playoff mode, for about the last, 70 games here or so. So that's the only thing that worries me about the Nationals is if can they just flip the switch and get to that ultra competitive level that the playoffs bring forth. So we'll see if they can pick it up today. We're going to talk about one more thing concerning baseball, Tobias, that you're real familiar with. The upheaval in the Atlanta Braves front office. Seems like there's a little controversy about their program as far as getting Dominican ball players into their system. I can just kind of elaborate on what's going on around the Braves. I know that made a lot of big news last week.
Woo! Well, where do I start, man? There's a whole lot of things. So this all came out on Monday of well, I guess what this air on Sunday. So yeah, it's been a week since everything happened. Yeah, so the day after the season ended, I get a text. By the way, I covered, for the audience, I covered the Braves for the Marion Daily Journal, so I'm there pretty much every single game. So I get a text message from I can't say who, saying that John Coppolella, the GM of the Braves, is resigning today, and I know the person would know those things, and I can't even repeat what I said back to the person because I'm trying to do better on keeping this more of a family podcast. But let's just say, typically as a baseball writer, you're thinking, okay, well, season's over. Now let's start talking about free agency. What are they going to do? So on and so forth, right? Who's going to be on the 25 man roster next year? That's what you're kind of thinking about as you're in baseball mode, right? So to get that text message, and then I started texting some people, and sure enough, it was true. And then it became, well, why? So basically, there's this practice, and it's a commonly held practice in Latin America that's called bundling, where, to be quite honest, it's really not much different than what these NCAA teams are accused of, where there are these trainers down there, they're called Buscones. The Buscone, takes care of a guy's equipment and tournament fees and all these different things. And then when the guy signs, the Buscone gets his money back through the guy going to the major leagues, getting signed by a major league team, right? So it's really a complicated, elaborate system. And quite frankly, it's really not much different than human trafficking when you factor in these guys are going over international waters to get to America, right? And then
Hmm.
especially when you factor in the Cuban players. I mean, considering everything that's going down there, I mean, this is a very serious thing that John Coppolella was doing. But guess what? There's 28 other teams doing the same thing. Problem is, Coppolella got caught. Well, he got told on more than he got caught, and so basically, he's not the GM anymore. And now the Braves face some sanctions. There are still people being investigated, which will also be very interesting to see how that plays out because they're investigating Gordon Blake. Not excuse me, Gordon Blake already got fired. They're investigating Brian Bridges, who's the director of scouting in America, which the American draft is one of the things the Braves are being accused of, are making what's called pre-draft deals. Which I mean, it's pretty standard. I mean, think about it. You watch the draft down, right?
Hmm.
And like you'll be on Twitter and Woj for say NBA draft, Woj will be like 5 picks ahead of the
Right.
broadcast, right? So how does Woj know that?
Right. They've
Because he's
got to
being
have
told. You know what I'm
something,
saying? I mean,
yeah,
because he's
in
being
place,
told
right?
those things. Yeah, and so how does Woj get that information? Well, obviously somebody's giving it to him, but how would they know to give it to him? Because there's already an agreement. You see what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the same thing in baseball, same thing in football. I mean, it's not really, and the way the baseball CBA is set up, it's set up to encourage these pre-draft deals, whether they want to or not. So anyway, my whole point of this is yeah, Capolella did some bad things. Braves are doing some bad things, but It's a baseball thing that's been going on. And I think at the end of the day, the Braves will receive some fines probably. And there probably will be a couple more people maybe in trouble. Like I mentioned, Brian Bridges, who's over amateur scouting in America, like the American stuff. And then also there's probably going to be Chad McDonald, who's over international scouting over in Asia, places like that. The Braves just signed a really big name young Asian player, for instance. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Kid from South Korea. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
like yeah, I mean the Braves have definitely been doing it because the other thing too is keep in mind, and I don't know how in depth the baseball audience is, so I'll try to kind of make this real simple. There's a kid Ronald Acuna who's supposed to be the second coming of Andrew Jones, and his signing bonus come in. You know how much it was, Don? Yes.
More than 5 million?
No, a little bit lower.
Oh, okay. 3.5?
Lower.
Uh, two?
Lower.
Wow. A million?
Exactly. No, $100,000. That's how much he was signed for.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, Ronald Acuna, who what they signed him, but I think the Braves got him at 16. Um, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Ozzy Albies was $500,000, who's starting. Dansby Swanson, on the other hand, got $4 or $5 million. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
Braves' first round pick they just got was a $7 million bonus and all that, how the packages work.
Hmm.
Kevin Maitan, who they're concerned about losing, he was a $4 million, but the Braves spent all of their pool money to get him. You know what I'm saying? Because it's basically how it works is there's a certain amount of money called the international pool, and that's what you spend. Typically, the signings are around $300,000 max because they're
Hmm.
trying to get as many players as they can. So
Right.
that being said, you have a lot of players right now who are in the major leagues that are outperforming, some of these American kids who started out with way less money to sign.
Yeah.
But that's how the system is set up. The system
Okay.
is set up to, I mean, it's kind of like America, right? I mean, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
whole other conversation. I'm really trying to like steer
Well, let's
careful
shift
on.
it. Let's
Yeah,
shift it to this. Who do you think? I know that John Sherholtz and Hart have been kind of running the front office kind of together. The operations part. They seem to be at odds right now of what direction they want to go. If they want to groom the younger Sherholtz, to come in and be ready, or if they want to go in a different direction. What's your temperature on who takes over the seat of GM for the Braves right
I
now?
mean, well, look, they want Dayton more, and that's probably the worst kept secret in sports. I mean, they want Dayton more. I think Dayton Moore wants to come, but there are some issues stopping that. One, Dayton Moore does not want to report to John Hart. If Dayton Moore comes, from everything that I've heard, everything that I've been told, Dayton Moore wants to come in and run his own operation. I think in exchange for that, he would also then groom Jonathan Sherholtz. John's about what, 34, 35.
Hmm.
Played high school ball, played college ball, played in the Braves minor league system. And, yeah, he has the Sherholtz name, let's be clear. That's probably why he gets drafted out of Auburn. He's an okay player, not nothing special. But and that's probably the reason why. Like his name helps him, but
Hmm.
he has done all the things that you want a baseball man to do, quote unquote. Which was one of the reasons why people had so much issue with John Capalella, because they felt he didn't go through the same path. Like he never played, which I think that's kind of BS and it's unfair. But a lot of people held that against that man. So anyway, I thought I'd say I think we'll see Dayton more if John Hart steps down from his president role. What I'm hearing is that depending on the particulars of this investigation as to who knew what and when, if John Hart comes out of that okay, I'm hearing that the compromise would be Hart goes into a advisor role, quote unquote,
Hmm.
which will basically mean he gets to keep his salary,
Right.
stay in baseball.
High
Yeah,
consultant,
exactly,
seat,
exactly.
come
Yeah, he'll
in
get to
three
see
days a week or so.
exactly, exactly, exactly. You know, he comes in a little bit. He still got the house in Florida, so I think he goes to an advisor role. I think from there, not Hart, Dayton Moore comes in as president, GM, and then eventually, because I think, if I'm correct, Jonathan Schultz is running the farm system right now. So maybe Jonathan becomes like an assistant GM and then starts to be groomed to become manager. Excuse me,
Okay.
general manager. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, Braves fans, definitely an active off season. So be on the lookout for the happenings
Yeah.
surrounding them this off season.
And keep in mind, look, we haven't mentioned not one player as to what they're going to do on the field because it's so chaotic. We still don't know who the coaches are going to be yet because Snicker has to sit down with Hart to make that decision, and it's a lot, man. It's a lot,
Yeah.
lot of moving parts.
All right. At this point, just want to let everybody know that you are listening to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente, and I'm joined by Nabias Wilborn. We're going to move on to NBA. Nabias, we didn't get a chance to hear your thoughts on the two last major moves of the NBA offseason, the Dwayne Wade leaving Chicago, linking back up with LeBron in Cleveland, and also Carmelo getting over to Oklahoma City. Just kind of, give us your thoughts on how those two players and those two moves changed the fortunes of those two teams.
Now, it's so interesting because seeing how it evolves, right? Because what was it, 5, 6 years ago when, LeBron takes his talents to South Beach, he was doing it to play with Wade, right? Because Wade was the alpha
The,
dog, right? Or
the
whatever
the
he is.
Yoda for him winning a championship.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so now it's flipped, and now Wade needs LeBron, just to not even win a championship, to even be relevant because the Bulls were trash last year. And quite honestly, a lot of it had to do with Wade. Wade and man, what's the point guard? The kid from Boston,
Rondo.
Rajon Rondo. They had issues, and that issue permeated throughout the locker room. The locker room splintered. It was a bad vibe up there because basically you had Jimmy Butler and Wade on one side, you had Rondo and the kids on the other side. It got ugly, and Wade was part of that. Like he just was. And Wade was part of that. So I say all that to say, I do think that Wade needed a second chance. I do think that this makes that Cavs team interesting. I don't know who they're gonna guard, but it looks like they can score. I mean, because we still haven't talked about Isaiah Thomas. He gets back in January, and then we still haven't talked about D Rose, who's there. If he's healthy, I think they have a chance to do some really fun things. Does that mean they beat the Warriors? Because all this is about the Warriors. All this is about beating the Warriors, which I like a lot, because teams are doing the best they can to compete with Golden State. So good on the NBA for not just because everybody could have just rolled over and they said, okay, well, Golden State's got KD, they got it, and they said no. Now you go down to OKC. Look what they did. Just 3 months ago, we're saying, "Oh man, Westbrook needs some help." Well, he's got some now, right?
Yeah, and
Um.
he signed his max deal after they got Carmelo as well, so he's locked in.
Oh yeah,
So they don't have.
and shout out to him for doing it on KD's birthday too, right? I mean,
All
here's the thing, right? He had the offer since like July 1st.
hmm.
Also, too, can you imagine sitting on a $200 million offer unsigned for that long?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a good luxury to have, I guess.
Woo! I'm just saying, can you imagine just being like, I mean, I would be like in bubble wrap, dude. Like, let's say he gets hurt and they don't like. Then all of a sudden they're like, nah, about that contract. Yeah, we're good. I mean, I'd be in fucking bubble. You hear me? I wouldn't go anywhere. I, man, look, I'd be scared to work out. I'd be scared to move wrong,
Let
dude.
alone having a dance contest with Odell Beckham Jr., huh?
Right. All that moving and stuff, man. No, bro, man, look, you better lost your money because he might it's unsigned. So if he doesn't sign it, then it goes away. You know, like they just tear it up because it's just paper. But shout out to Westbrook, man. Secure the bag, man. Get your money. Good for him. And I think Paul George sees that. I wouldn't be surprised if Paul George ends up staying now. I wouldn't be surprised depending on how things go, particularly with Melo and Lala maybe not being whatever, because I do think a big part of their thing was him being in a major city. Well, it
Hmm.
seems like her opinion isn't as important anymore, and he can go to OKC. So I still think Melo got a lot of game in him, and I still think Melo will be a better. I mean, look, he's never going to be a no, he's never going to be a lockdown defender. Like that ain't him. But I do think he can be more engaged on defense, and I also think that he can be a more efficient offensive player. And I think they'll work it out, man. Guys like that, they work it out. Now, again, do they beat the Golden State Warriors? I doubt it, but it makes it more fun.
Do you
I mean,
think
you got
that Oklahoma City overtakes Houston as the second best team coming out of the West now?
I don't know because and I know in this business like people don't like I don't know. I think I don't know is a great answer because we don't know. But I do know this. It's gonna be fun to watch. Can you imagine a playoff series like say Eastern Conference semifinal
Hmm.
with OKC and Houston?
Yeah. And don't forget about the Spurs.
Ooh.
You know, the
Right,
Spurs
that's what
kind
I'm
of
saying. We ain't
retooled a
talking about
little
the
bit
Spurs.
too. So,
I mean, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you look at that top half, and I think Minnesota's going to be better than people think because that boy Karl Anthony Towns is a bad, bad man. New Orleans, they still got those two big guys down there. I mean, by the way, shout out to Kentucky, man. Is there a school? All right, because remember when UNC and Duke when they were having to run send all those guys to the pros, but none of them ever did anything in the pros. Look at
hmm.
Kentucky. All those guys do stuff in the pros, man. D Fox. I mean, we can go on down the line, man. Like when
Yeah.
Kentucky gets a guy, Cal is amazing, man. I hate to get off on a tangent here, but I would literally just go through and name players. You look at Karl Anthony Towns, you look at Boogie Cousins, you look at the
Anthony
Brow,
Davis.
right? Huh?
Anthony Davis, right? Anthony
Yeah, Anthony
Davis.
Davis. Yeah, I mean, you look at all these kids, man.
Julius Randle starting to look like he's, shaping up out there in LA, like he's going to be something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, Kentucky. I can't think of a school that has had a run of that many good pro. I mean, maybe UNC in the '80s when like Jordan and Worthy and Nimble and Sam Perkins was coming out, but
Yeah.
I would have to get somebody who would know more about college basketball, but I can't think of a coach. And then if you go back to what Cal was doing at Memphis with all those guys, like when
Hmm.
Cal got to the pro, to the NBA, he's a pro and he's ready to play and he
Yeah.
contributes. It's just amazing to me.
Another big topic that came out of the NBA this week was a change in the All Star game. We will still have the Eastern and Western Conference fan vote, and reserves being picked, by fans. But this time, the two leading vote getters will become captains, and they will be able to select from the pool of players that are voted on as starters and reserves. This is a kind of a concept that they kind of stole from the NHL. They used the world and the USA format for a long time, and then they kind of scrapped that and went to more of this pickup game type format for the All Star game. So I think the NBA is doing a really big disservice by not actually showing this as part of the All Star weekend. Apparently, everything is going to be done in private as far as picking the teams and everything like that. But I think that this would actually add a really intriguing part to that Friday night All Star weekend. To see the captains come out and everybody dressed up in their uniforms and they pick the sides.
I don't know. I kind of wish they would just do it. I wish they would do it right before the game. Like just straight up, like
Yeah.
fantasy football style, like this, like for real, like you just have them all, you just have them all sitting there. I mean, like you do the Friday night, you do Saturday night the way you do Saturday night, right?
Hmm.
Because they wear their regular team stuff anyway, right? And you do that or whatever Saturday night,
Hmm.
right? And then I would say Friday night, shoot, man. Excuse me, Saturday night, yeah, the All Star, dunk contest, 3-point contest, all that stuff, right? You do that the way you would do it. Then Sunday the game, you get up by you get about an hour early, and just if it's Curry and LeBron, you just sit there and just let them pick right there, like straight up old school street style.
Hmm.
Like straight up
Yeah,
pickup
that would.
style, man. I would that would just be fun. I mean, they won't do that for a lot of different reasons, but it would just be fun. Like, you still have a coach, and then okay, or if you want to do it, then make that a part of like Saturday night. Then
Hmm.
and that guy's like sitting there lined up, just ready to go.
Yeah. It's a
Like I want him. I want him.
it's a made for TV event for sure, especially with the NBA because that's basically how everybody plays basketball anyway. Is you stand out there and line up and everybody you choose, and who would get picked last, who would get picked first. Would LeBron pick
Hey,
Kyrie? Would Westbrook get picked by Curry? Just so many different
yeah. I mean,
maturations.
and there's layers to it, right? Because then it's like, you know, um, well, since Isaiah Thomas won't be back until January, he's not going to make the All Star team, for instance.
Hmm.
But just is Kevin Love an All Star again, and then does LeBron pick him, or LeBron try to go at Kevin Love? You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many different like little things, and yeah, like it would have been guaranteed that LeBron and Kyrie would have been on the same team. Now it's not. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's gonna be. Like I said, I mean, they're gonna find so many ways to have fun with this, man. I hope whatever they do make it public.
Yeah, eventually, yeah, hopefully somebody gets into the ear of the NBA and realize that this would be a huge ratings draw and bring a
Well,
lot
yeah,
of
I mean, I
attention.
just think it would just be fascinating to sit there and watch like Steph, assuming it's Steph and LeBron, which I think it probably will be. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. I think they're the two most popular players in the league, right?
Right.
And particularly for East and West Conference. Um, I think it would just be so fun to see them just sitting there and just pointing, well, no, I want this. And then having to explain each pick and why they picked this person at this, that. Or even better, like if you get whoever the coach is going to be in there and then like LeBron and the coach are going back and forth. And I mean, it can
Hmm.
be fun, man. It can be so many different things. Because it can't be Brad Stevens because Brad Stevens was last year and it can't be Kerr. So let's say, assuming the Cavs are where they should be, then it's T. Lue and LeBron are sitting there, and then say it's Kerr, and let's say I don't know, let's say the Spurs are the team, right? Because it
Hmm.
can't be Kerr. So let's say it's Curry and it's Popovich, and they're just sitting there and they're going back and forth and saying, "Well, nah, man, you need to get this guy." Well, I'm kind of a coach here, Steph. Well, I'm the captain. I mean, it would just be fun, man. I'm saying, like, and most of those guys, for the most part, they all get along, so it'd be fun. But yeah, it would be intriguing, and I think the NBA, I like that it plays into its own drama. And we don't get into the gendered drama queen stuff like they do if, say, Odell Beckham has a little bit of personality, he's a diva. And by the way, I hate that terminology. I hate that we do that. shit.
Yeah.
It's just childish and it's sexist and it's homophobic and everything else. And I love that the NBA allows those guys to have personalities and have emotions and feelings and not like certain guys or like certain people. I think that that's fun. And I think that the NBA has definitely strongly positioned itself as the second most popular sport in America. And I wouldn't be surprised one day if they push the NFL out, but that's a whole other conversation.
They've figured out what the NFL has figured out for a long time is how to make their season relevant the whole year. And this offseason was one of the craziest ones. I mean, going back to July 1st last year when KD signed with the Warriors and all the talk that led up through the season, then you get the season, and then this offseason has just gone from the time the Warriors won the championship all the way up until a week before training camp starts. And we've had some type of big NBA news. It seems like every, couple of weeks or at least once a month. So, they're more relevant than they've ever been, as far as staying in the news, being a part of the news cycle, and just to talk. So, good job to Adam Silver. I think most people are more excited about this NBA season than they have been in a long time.
Well, yeah, because the other thing too is as good as the Warriors are, like last year was a little bit discouraging to be honest, starting the season because when KD went there, I mean, you you pretty much knew that it was over. You knew, you just knew it was over.
Right.
I mean, and even myself, I kind of was like, well, maybe it'll take a little bit of time to gel, but nah, we knew. But now
Hmm.
this year, and I still think the Warriors are the best team in the league. Don't get me wrong.
But the gap is a little bit closer than it
Yes,
was.
yes, yes. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we barely touched on Houston, but them getting Chris Paul with Harden, I mean, that's going to be an interesting team. I mentioned OKC earlier with those three guys. They're going to have, man, they're going to be an interesting team with an angry Carmelo Anthony who's mad. What he's like player number 50 or whatever on the ESPN list. Which, by the way, full disclosure, I voted on the list. I didn't vote him that low. But I didn't vote him as high as he would want to be either. But I ain't vote him that low. I couldn't do him like that. But I know some people who did vote him that low, and quite honestly, they had some reasons for it. I mean, Anyway, I don't want to get all analytically and nerdy there, but I could see their point even if I don't agree with it.
Right. Right.
But all that being said, it's gonna be a fun season, man. Like I said, I still think the Warriors are gonna win it, but I think it's gonna be a lot harder. And I think that's what people want to see. That certain teams have a chance. I mean, you look at like you're here in Atlanta, and the Hawks don't have a chance of doing nothing, but even they have a couple of interesting characters and interesting stories. I mean, we didn't talk about the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo and hopefully, prayerfully, a healthy Jabari Parker. Man, that kid is so special. And you look at what they've been kind of doing to get themselves together. Now, again, not saying they win the East because that still belongs to the Cavs, but Greek Freak is hungry, man. He's coming. So
Yeah.
there are so many compelling characters and people throughout the league. And tell you what, man, they've done a really good job for themselves. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this season is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just a reminder that you are listening to Know the Score. This episode is being brought to you by the fine people over at audible.com. They're offering a free audio download and a 30-day trial. And the way that you can get that is by visiting our website, www.cspn.us, clicking on the tab that says support our sponsors. Click on Audible, and there you can get to choose from over 150 titles, and they can be played on your iPhones, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So, go to Audible, get you the autobiography of Tommy Smith, or if you're into wrestling, Jim Ross just released his new book. It's called My Slobber Knocker: My Life in Professional Wrestling. So yeah, go over to audible.com. use by CSPN.us and get you an Audible download, free 30-day trial, and get you something that you've been meaning to not necessarily read, but now you can listen to it on your travels or during your daily work or whatever. So audible.com through CSPN.us, do it today. Now, Tobias, we're going to shift over to the NFL. Big news was off the field as Cam Newton done it again. Press conference. He, of course, everybody knows by now, made a disparaging remark towards a lady reporter for the Charlotte Observer. Basically, he thought it was funny that a female would ask him about running routes, and that sparked a huge controversy, led to Cam losing a sponsor. He had to come out and issue an apology, which was probably about 12 hours too late, but nonetheless, he finally did craft an apology. What would be your advice to one Cameron Newton, Tobias, as far as him and his handling of the media going forward?
Man, I mean, shit. What can I say? I mean, look, I mean, he said a bad thing. I think he knew it was well. Actually, I don't think he knew it was a bad thing. I think he thought it was okay. Which is it's kind of. I want to be careful what I say here because I want to make. I mean, look, I don't think what Cam said was okay, right? I know it wasn't okay. It wasn't cool. You know what I'm saying? And you would think that he would be smart enough not to, but for whatever reason, he thought it was okay. So there's a part of me that wants him to be who he is. Like, don't be somebody you're not. Like, if that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. Or that's what you think, that's what you think. Like, don't, put on airs for me. But, obviously our world doesn't do that and can't handle that. And, so, he got his spanking for what he did. He was wrong. And what I hope is he learns from it and actually learns how to interact with women beyond having sex with them or, seeing them as not being able to understand football concepts. But
Right,
again, that's something that he has to want to do. You understand what I'm saying?
right, right.
Like, that's
Now,
not something that, go ahead.
I'm glad I have you on because you've covered the Hawks, you're covering the Braves now. Just how common is it for the players, at least the star players, the players who you guys, talk to at least every day? How common is it for them to at least know your name and have that kind of relationship with you, at least first name or last name kind of relationship with you?
Well, I mean, okay. All right. I'm going to say it like this. Like, because I've worked in different situations where I'm not there every day, and I've been in situations where I am there every day. Typically, if you're a beat writer like Jordan is, she's there every day. There's two people. There's two people who work that beat for the Carolina for Charlotte. What's it called?
Charlotte
Observer.
Observer. Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, which that paper is a whole other conversation to itself. But Joe Pearson is the number one on that beat. She's the number two. Typically, how these beats work at these papers, the ones that can still actually afford to cover sports. She would basically fill in the gaps from where Joe misses. Like when Joe writes a game story, she writes what's called a sidebar. Sidebar is typically an accompanying story. She'll also do features, things of that nature. Or maybe she'll write the game and Joe write anyway. So, basically she bolsters the coverage. And I'm pretty sure she travels with the team, right? So she's at every single practice, every single availability. Because typically that's how it is. Like the TV people are probably there just when the quarterback talks, maybe one other time. But she's there at that facility every single day. Every time the media can be there, she's there. And she's been on the beat for, I think, a year now, according to what I saw. So, yeah, you would assume that Cam would know her name. You would think. He should. But, we also live in an era where, quite honestly, Cam Newton doesn't either. How many followers Cam Newton got on Twitter? No,
Millions.
I'm serious, like literally millions, right? I mean, and
Right.
then on Instagram he has millions, right? And then He has Facebook. So he doesn't need Jordan Rodrigue at the Charlotte Observer to get his message out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as somebody who I'm in those like I would say about 70% of the Braves players know my name. You know what I'm saying? Like a couple of them just don't bother trying to pronounce it correctly, which is which is annoying into itself. But
Right.
for the most part, even if they don't know my name, just because some people are lazy and they just don't like learning people's names. Some people are just like that, which is unfortunate. But I would say for the most part, most of those guys know my name because I'm there every single day. Like every time the clubhouse is open, I'm there. So by sheer virtue of being there, even if they don't ask me directly, typically they'll ask the PR guy, "Hey, what's that guy's name?"
Mm-hmm.
Or he's with what paper? That's how it's typically done. Oh, that's New Bias. He's blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So anyway, and forgive the long answer. If y'all need to edit it out, whatever. But you would think that Cam Newton would know her name because she's there every single day. Even if he doesn't talk to her directly every day, she's there. And, she writes for the biggest outlet in that market. But, and I mentioned the paper earlier, that's also a paper that's been very, at times, racist in its coverage towards Cam Newton. So
Right.
I could see a scenario where and this is not me justifying what he said or me saying what he said was cool. Because I'm going to get to the next part of this too, right? Because there's two different things that happen here. All right. Obviously, she had her racist tweets. But let's be honest. Cam didn't know shit about her racist tweets. Because he didn't know her damn name. So that argument just doesn't fly because how would he know about her? I'm pretty sure Cam Newton doesn't follow that woman on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure he's never seen her tweets because he didn't know her damn name, right? So
Right.
let's cut that shit out. But what is a concern is how that paper has treated Cam Newton over the years. So there's a chance that Cam Newton could have not known her name. And it's something I wouldn't tweet because it would take too many tweets to say what I'm trying to say. And people would just see one tweet and I don't feel like dealing with all that bullshit. But I can believe that Cam Newton didn't want to know her name because of where she worked.
Right.
Because of how that paper has treated her. And there's definitely been some historic poor treatment. Like remember the Super Bowl run and those letters to the editor and all that stuff that they ran, and they said some really bad things that trafficked in racism about Cam. And quite honestly, after all that, that's when Cam kind of went all lives matter. You remember. So I could see how Cam could see her is because she came October last year, right? So I can see how Cam could see her and be like, "Oh, she with that paper? Yeah, fuck that bitch." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I could now. I'm not justifying it, and I'm not saying that he should call that woman out her name. I'm just saying that I could understand how that because I've been in those situations. I've had extensive conversations with people because they didn't like a headline. I ain't write a headline, bro. Or they didn't like something I wrote. Well, is it true? Well, yeah, but I ain't like it. Well, I'm sorry, bro. I can't. So those things do happen, like that. But she's there anyway. It's kind of complicated, but he should have known her name at least out of just basic courtesy. But I could also see how he wouldn't because he doesn't need her, which is still wrong. Because I mean, that'd be like saying, well, just because you don't need somebody doesn't mean you have to be nice to them. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. Or be respectful to her because she is at work.
Yeah, because she's there. Like it's just it would be like, well, I'll tell you this. He knows her name now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Let's shift to some on the field stuff right quick. As last week, the St. Louis Rams, got one step closer to making people believers as they went into Texas Stadium down there and beat the Cowboys. Came from behind, held the Cowboys to 3 points in the second half, ended up putting up close to 30 themselves. Todd Gurley had a breakout game, 3 touchdowns, caught a long pass to basically put the Rams up for good. Rams defense, like I said, in the second half, really showed up, shut down Ezekiel Elliott, got Dak Prescott to make a couple of mistakes, and the Rams are 3-1. And this week they're going up against the Seahawks, who are also 3-1 for the supremacy of the NFC West. What are your just overall impressions so far of the Rams, and are they for real? If they beat Seattle, I know this week, I think everybody will be on board with them.
NFL, who knows?
Yeah, week to week, but they've been pretty consistent, and golf has looked a lot better. McVay definitely proven that he is definitely a quarterback whisperer, as a guy who looked like he couldn't play last year looks that it's one of the highest rated QBs in the league. Like I said, the Rams lead the NFL in scoring 35 points a game. So,
Well, I mean, but what defenses have they been playing against? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
and I'm not saying that to be, condescending. I don't mean it that way. It's just that it's it's hard to know who's even 4 games in. It's hard to know who's good. I mean, I look at the Buffalo Bills, for instance. They came in. I was at that game. They beat the Falcons, right? At home.
Yeah, at home.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, are the Bills good?
I think the Bills might have a little bit more of the testing that you were looking for because they came back and followed that up with they beat Denver as well, which everybody believes is a pretty good team, especially on defense. And Tyrod Taylor did work against their secondary. He had the highest rated QB passer rating that Denver's given up in the past 3 seasons about Tyrod Taylor. So I think the Bills may be a little bit closer to having people believe in them than the Rams. It's like you're saying, the Rams have kind of, Cowboys defense, secondary is in shambles. Sean Lee did not play in that game, so their linebacking core up the middle was a little soft. So, if you want to say, they can this week is their true prove it game because everybody knows what Seattle's defense is. I'll definitely agree with you with that.
I mean, but hey, man, Shannon Sharp likes me on his miles ahead. So, I mean, I mean, like I said, I mean, my jury's still out because golf looks good now, but the NFL is an adjustment league. Let's
Right.
see what happens as teams continue to adjust him. But hey, look, he's looked a lot better, and it's just crazy, man. It's like, you know, there was a time in sports, and I was thinking about this in baseball, where it's been known thing that you don't judge a player until he's played for 3 years in the
Hmm.
majors.
Right.
Now, and when guys were coming up through the minor leagues, you spent a year at each level. Like, say if you
Hmm.
get drafted out of high school, right? So you're 16, you're 18, 19, you get drafted out of college. Well, you're 21, 22, whatever, right? So you start out, you spend maybe a full season in single A. Then you spend a full season in double A. Then you maybe spend half a season, full season in triple A. Then you come up that 4th year. Then, then after 3 years in the majors, then we can say, well, this is who Bryce Harper is, or this is who Mike Trout is. Now, a guy has a good month in single A, they want him in the majors.
Right. Right. I've noticed that a lot too. That they've been a lot of teams have just been skipping AAA with their guys in general
Right.
and just
Mm-hmm.
send them straight from AA straight up. And then if they falter or fail a little bit, then they send them back down to one level to AAA. Is that because they don't want them to get mixed up with the salty veterans who only see him as a bonus baby and might not try to help him, or is it just that they feel like, oh my gosh, we got a star, we just need to get him up
No,
here?
it's more they're just rushing, man.
Okay.
That's it. They're just rushing it. But I was trying to make that analogy to my point of what happens is is now what we're doing in every sport is we're making these full judgments on players. Um, Not even a year, not even a whole 2 years. Like quarterbacks, like it used to be a time. I was making an announcement with quarterbacks. Like Aaron Rodgers is the last, first round draft pick quarterback that we've seen actually sit for 2 3 years
Yeah.
and learn. Like now it's okay. Quarterback gets drafted. Dak Prescott. He has two good games. All of a sudden, well, he's going to be future Hall of Famer. It's like whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's see what the guy does over a while. And vice versa. The guy has two bad games. Well, he's never going to be anything. He's a bust. I mean, I look at like Vic Beasley, the defensive lineman for the Falcons, right? His
Mm-hmm.
rookie year was mediocre because he's a damn rookie. He's still learning how to play in the NFL. He's still learning how to be a pro athlete.
He's
Like,
probably learning how to get to the stadium.
yeah, we'll get to practice in the facility. It just, I mean, because, you know, I think sometimes we forget, in particular, like if you don't cover this stuff, and a lot of people who talk the most on TV are so far detached away from the locker rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know what's going on with people. You don't know why it takes a guy a little bit longer because sometimes it just takes people longer.
Right.
Like
Right.
I would imagine most of us, when we turned pro in whatever profession we're in, we weren't the greatest out of the box. I look at TV people, right? Like nobody starts with their first TV job hosting the 6 p.m. Sports Center. Where do you go?
Mm-hmm.
You go to West Bumblefuck for a year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever. They get you
Right.
in, right? Then you got to West Bumblefuck, and maybe you end up in, somewhere like a Memphis or somewhere like a Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so,
Right.
and then maybe if you do well there, you end up in a, a Houston or an Atlanta or a New York or whatever. And if you do well there, maybe you go national. Maybe you get what I'm saying. Like
Right.
there's
Right.
a progression, but often with these athletes, they graduate college or they come out of high school and they're expected to be the best in their field, and it just takes time. So anyway, I started to say I don't know what Goff is yet. He's had a couple good games that have been impressive. I want to see how he does as teams start to adjust to him because you know, when he first came in, the defenses were doing stuff he never seen before.
Right.
Now he's adjusted. So let's see what happens when people adjust to him. Then I can really truly say whether they're good. But they're off to a good start. They do a lot of things well. And, speaking of people who were thought off for dead, shout out to Todd Gurley.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, McVay is a really good coach, man. Offensive minded coach. The knock on him in Washington was that he didn't really stick with the running game. But to be honest with him, he didn't have anybody as good as Todd Gurley running the football. So it's a lot easier to kind of be committed to the running game when you've got a guy like Todd Gurley who can take it, 70 at any given moment. So, offensively, they're well ahead of their defense, which is kind of surprising. They got Wade Phillips in, they're kind of rearranging their style of defense. So, if they can kind of keep their offense sustained to where their defense catches up, the Rams could be a problem. They could be, definitely on the edge of a playoff berth. Maybe not this year get in, but definitely, have people looking at them next year as a for sure definite playoff team. We're gonna go over to a team that's really struggling right now, and that's the New York Giants. New York Giants had a lot of fanfare coming into the season. People thought that they were gonna definitely be a challenger for the NFC East, maybe even be a surprise in the NFC Championship game this year. Adding Brandon Marshall to their offense, everybody thought that they would just be explosive, high flying, putting points up all over the place, and that hasn't definitely been the case so far this year. So at 0-4 in the bias, is there any way for the Giants to reach their potential, or do you think that they should probably start looking for the future? There seems to be a lot of highly thought of quarterbacks in this draft that maybe this is the year that they kind of get in position to start their future without Eli.
Um, 0-4 is tough, man. 0-4 is really hard to come back from and, make the playoffs. I don't think they have much of a choice. I mean, they're not good, so I don't think they have a choice whether they want to be good or not. I think if they wanted to, I think they thought they were going to be good. I don't think they have a choice. I don't think they're going to be doing it on purpose. They just going to be bad because they're bad. I mean,
Right.
what else you going to say? I mean, you know, I am curious as to the health of that star receiver. I'm really worried as to what's really going on there. Is Odell okay? Like, what's really happening? There's a lot of things going on in that team, and they just don't have a really great. I mean, look, when Eli has a good offensive line that protects for him, and he doesn't get those happy feet, he's still a top 10 quarterback in his league. When he doesn't, he's bottom 5, man, and it's bad.
Right. Right.
And the Giants, I mean, they don't have an offensive line, man. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at like the Seahawks, man. They spend all their money on defense, which is great. Have a great defense, but that offensive line is trash, man. I mean, you gotta balance that thing out, and it's really tough in the salary cap era, which again is also to what I'm saying, what makes the NFL so blasé sometimes, man, because it's really hard to build a good team, a good, well-rounded team
Hmm.
with the current CBA. So that's why every team has a hole. I still think, from what I've seen, even though the Falcons lost against the Buffalo Bills, because maybe the Buffalo Bills are better than we think they are. We are who they thought they were, right?
Hmm.
And circle the wagons. But I still think the Falcons at this moment are the most complete team in the NFL. Even the Falcons got holes, but they're still the most complete team in the NFL, in my opinion, right now.
Right. Right. We had two major quarterback injuries as Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota both got injured this past week. And it's funny because they both got injured last year on the same week. And Derek Carr broke his lower leg and Mariota broke his leg on the same week, too. So these two guys are linked up with getting hurt on the same day. Looks like Mariota may not be as injured as they first feared. Hamstring pull strain rather than a pull. He may play this Sunday. They really had a poor performance after he went out. The Texans and Deshaun Watson really put on a show. Um, Texans defense really ate up the Titans after Mariota went out. But the more concerning and pressing issue is Derek Carr. 2 years back to back here where he's, going to have to miss some, maybe not as much time as we think. They think maybe he may be able to play in a couple of weeks. But they said, 2 to 4 week injury here. The Raiders have kind of been disappointing, and now they have to go to EJ Manuel as their quarterback. I think the Raiders are in trouble if Derek Carr has to miss more than 2 games. For a team that seems to have such a very good offensive line, highly touted, he's taking his fair of hits. Are you worried that Derek Carr maybe is going to get the rep that he's injury prone?
Well, I mean, you know,
Two,
reputations come from a place, right? I mean, like
right?
people don't just make up stuff. I mean, I don't know. Well, I ain't worried about his rep. I'm worried about his body, and it would suck, man. It would really suck for that kid because he could play.
Yeah.
He's got, and I hate the phrase arm talent, but he's got it, man. That kid's special, and he can move. It's just,
He,
look, man.
the two injuries have been kind of freaky, though. We had a guy literally get kind of roll up on his leg last year that caused a lower broken leg. And then this year he's getting tackled and he's basically down on the ground and a guy kind of trips and knees him in the back and breaks the
Yeah,
two transverse bones in his back. These are non-weight bearing bones, so he can work out in the pool and do various things. Actually, Tobias, it's the same injury Stone Cold had when he was not wrestling for that little bit of time on SmackDown, where he was just doing the comedy stuff with Kurt Angle. Yeah, he had the same injury. So it's not a, debilitating injury. It's just that, you have to kind of stay off of it for a couple of weeks until those bones can at least, get strong enough to take some type of pounding. So hopefully he doesn't have to miss too many weeks. But in that division, with the way the Broncos are playing, the way Kansas City started out 4-0, you don't want to get too many more games behind.
Well, I mean, nah, you don't, man, because I think Kansas City is good. I do think they're good. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? I don't know, but they're a good team. They're fun to watch, man. They do a lot of things right. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, on the injuries, man, it's just what can you do? What can you do, man? I mean, you can't do anything. I mean, football is just a dangerous game, even when it's not a dangerous place. I mean, the game. I mean, think about it. You have a whole league. The CFL is like, yo, we're taking tackling out of our practices.
Mm-hmm.
In order to practice football, you have to play football. So now what they're saying is, yo, football is too dangerous to practice. But they're really, I mean, really think about that. I mean, they're saying it is too dangerous to practice football.
Or you guys are
Well,
too valuable to get hurt while we practice football. We'd much rather you get hurt when these games count.
when the games actually mean something, right? So, but think about that. Like that's where we're at with this, and yet we still keep sending our kids to play. So, and I don't even want to get all deep off into that, but you know, we got to do some evaluation on this thing, man, because can't keep sending these kids out there like that, man. And you know, and there's no real way to make the game safe, man. Because
Right.
I think they're doing a great job for the most part, other than playing games on Thursday and stuff. But I think they're doing a great job for the most part. It's just
Yeah, and you know why I can tell? Because the other night on that Thursday night game when Danny Trevathan lined up Devontae Adams from 3 yards away and hit him helmet to helmet, 15 years ago, Don would have been like, "Oh snap, that's the best hit I think I've ever seen in my life."
mm-hmm.
Now it's like, "Oh my gosh, that's awful," and he probably should be ejected and at least suspended for a couple of games. So they've done a lot to change the culture as far as the violence in the game, which is definitely good.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, we remember everybody. We used to watch the big hit videos, all that stuff, man. I mean, NFL used to market those. So I mean, you know, they've done better. Or that segment, the jacked up segment they used to do
Hmm.
on ESPN. So, I mean, you know, they're doing better. It's just
It's tough way to make a living.
I mean, it's a dangerous game, man.
Right. Right. Now we'll do one another preview as the Packers are going to go down to Texas and play the Cowboys. This will be a high-profile game. Cowboys have been struggling. Teams have, basically loaded up, stopped Zeke, and made Dak Prescott try to beat them. And in the two games that teams have been successful with kind of slowing down Zeke, Dak has not been successful. The Packers come in. They're banged up at wide receiver, of course. Running back, Ty Montgomery, he's got broken ribs. He probably won't play. He'll probably be a game time decision at best. Do you have a read on how you see this one playing out? Last year they had one of the best playoff games. Aaron Rodgers, got some of that magic at the end, got the Packers in position to kick the game-winning field goal, knock the Cowboys out of the playoffs. So this is basically a rematch of that. Do you have a read? Do you think that the Packers can keep Dallas off the field on offense long enough to kind of cover up their defense because their defense has got some holes in it as well.
Well, I mean, again, these are two flawed teams, right? But that's the NFL. I mean, all these teams have flaws. But I think Packers win. I don't have a special reason for it other than I just think the Packers are better.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't. I think the Cowboys they did not invest in their offensive line the way they should have, and when Dak doesn't have protection, there's just things that he misses, and he's not good right now.
It doesn't
And
seem like that the only
yeah,
thing that they've really done to kind of increase his responsibility is they're going a little bit more no huddle, and he's doing a lot more, changing plays or recognizing plays at the line. But it doesn't seem like that they've really expanded the offense as far as made it a little bit more complicated with the routes and the concepts.
well, I mean, but that's what you're supposed to do, right? As he continues to progress, he's supposed to pick up more of the expand the playbook, as they say. Problem
Right,
is, it's hard. I mean, again, it's a second year guy, and
right.
he had a lot of success last year off having this really stout offensive line, having Ezekiel Elliott ball out because of that offensive line, and this year it ain't happening. You know, NFL's tough, man.
Right, right. Well, That's NFL action. We got a bunch of good games this week. Got the Panthers and the Lions. They're both 3-1. They're going up against each other. We got a 0-4 bowl this week as the Giants and Chargers are gonna face each other. Phillip Rivers and Eli
Okay, where
Manning.
is that game?
I think it's in the Chargers. I think it's in LA. I'm not sure, but I
Oh,
think it's in
good
LA.
lord! So it's gonna be like, so like, who's gonna show up in that game? The Giants fans gonna show up? Or, 'cause I wouldn't want to go. I mean, that could be bad. Cause
Yeah,
you saw it with like the Eagles, like all those Eagles fans went. So, oof.
yeah. They're having a hard time filling that stadium, and it's the smallest stadium in the league, and they're having a hard time filling it with Charger fans. So they might be playing a 16 game road season, and that might be kind of what the Raiders face next year in Las Vegas. It's going to be a kind of destination. Hey, I'm going to go see my team play in Vegas, and maybe more of the other team's fans there than Raiders fans. So that'll be kind of be interesting to see how that plays out next year.
Yeah, man. I think the Raiders will be a little different. I think they have like a more dedicated fan base, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. So at this time, the bias, we'll just open it up for any closing remarks or final thoughts that you'd like to share here with the fans.
Well, yeah, man. We talked about the Cam Newton Jordan Rodriguez thing earlier. I just kind of want to make sure I make it really clear. What Cam Newton said was wrong. It was reprehensible, and he should have apologized. And hopefully, he apologized to that woman face to face. What he said does not justify, does not excuse her racist comments that she made however long ago she made. And clearly she wasn't smart enough to delete them, or maybe she forgot about them. Who knows? So I think she has some questions to answer as well, because is she racist? Does she really believe that stuff? Or was she just tweeting just to be tweeting? Who knows? I don't know that woman. I I think I met her once, but I don't know her, so I can't really comment on if she's a racist or not. But she's got some questions to answer, and how she answers those questions will be, quite honestly, the tell of what her career would be. I think she's like in her mid-20s, so she's still young. She's got a good gig. If she does well with that, she should continue to go on to do other things. But the main thing, more than anything, is I think these athletes have to learn more positive attitudes towards women and just people in general that aren't them. I think so often they get into these bubbles because they're making so much money. You don't know how to relate. You don't know how to relate, and you know how to be around other people. But for Jordan, she's got some explaining to do. And also, I think the Charlotte Observer has something to do as well, because how did she get the job with those kind of things on her Twitter?
Right, right. My final thought will be that October is the best month to be a sports fan, as all the sports are in session right now, even fringe sports like NASCAR. We've got World Cup qualifying. We've got NHL season just started up. We got baseball playoffs. Football isn't, month into it. So it's the only time of the whole year where everything is going on at one time. And it makes for just crazy television viewing. I know Thursday night we had college football game between two top 25 teams. We had an NFL game. We had a baseball playoff game going on. So it's just a really fun month if you're a huge sports fan. Everything is in full swing right now. So um, you know October is my favorite month as a sports fan. So just kind of my final thought. So for my guest host today, Nabias Wilborn, I'm Don Delarente, and now you know the score.